I don't think many of you would believe this, that 9 months ago, I found myself on my bedroom floor on my birthday praying for a change. And it was a pretty candid prayer of, God, I would like to be in rooms where I'm not the smartest person in the room. Fast forward, I am walking into a meeting to meet Jordan Peterson. So anything can happen if you've got the faith, and your life can fully exceed your expectations if you're just willing to commit to excellence in pursuing that. For everyone at Stride and Contour that pulled this all together and made it possible, thank you. I am very grateful, even though I've said that already. How many of you have found it pretty daunting to think about your career? Show of hands? Yeah. This is a big decision because you end up spending about a third of your life in your career. I read that statistic recently, and it's a pretty big situation when sometimes you don't even know what you want for lunch some days. Our careers are more like amusement park rides versus a statistical line graph. You know, typically when we're thinking about success and how we kind of rise to the occasion, it's always this hero's journey of like, they just skyrocketed and launched and they made it. It's not like that. So hopefully tonight we can set the bar straight, and we can also get into this more comfortable position. If you like roller coasters, if you don't, we'll figure out what we can do. But it is much more like the twists, the turns, the double loops, maybe even a backwards, forward loop and a whole spiral and then some. But it does make for a really entertaining story and unique experience. A lot of times we think, am I qualified? Do I have the skills? Am I capable to do this? Why am I entering this room? If we can just get to a point where we start asking why not, we'll start to realize that we're far more capable than we give ourselves credit. And so that leads me into the 5 areas that I have identified in a career to help you with success. And they're kind of like dualed with 2 things. So number 1 being identity and character, 2, purpose and passion, 3, skill set and application, 4, adaptability and curiosity, and last one, the network and relationships. They all go hand in hand. They're kind of 2-for-1s. You need them all to, you know, like the roadmap to getting where you want to be. This is what I kind of coined, what makes you, you. But when I was in high school, I discovered emo music. Yes, I had the full swoop and crazy eyeliner. I wasn't that bad. When I look at photos, I'm not as ashamed, but I am definitely like, wow, it was a special time in my life. That being said, it actually helped me discover a lot of who I am. And it did actually drive me closer to discovering my faith. I am a Christian, and when I discovered my faith, it was actually through the lyrics of a song by a very intense emo Swedish metal rock band. I know. He actually is a phenomenal singer. He sings very melodically, but he had a song called Pitiful, and one day when you're bored, you can look that up and listen to the lyrics because they are really stunning. But I knew at that time when I heard that song that all I wanted to do was unpack music, and I really wanted to be a music journalist. That's what I had decided. And so I discovered the #1, journalism program in the country for me in the States is the University of Missouri at that time. And I also went really deep into figuring out how I could go there because I was convinced that that was my school. And I found out that they had automatic acceptance for certain, degree and various little criteria that I knew I was going to meet. Even if I wasn't there, I was going to figure it out. And I figured it out, I met the things, and so I was convinced that that was the place I was going. So much so that it was the only school I applied to. Now, if you guys have foreign parents, if any of them are like mine, when they found out, I was in a lot of trouble. They were not happy with me. It was a pretty shocking thing for them to discover, especially when I have a twin brother. And we are definitely compared to each other. And it was very interesting for him to be getting all this mail, and the one student that they were like, she's a sure-in at every university, was not. Because I had only applied to one school. And even then, you see kids running down the hall wearing their different sweatshirts and like their letters waving in the air, I got in! And I'm like, think I will. I could have been really put off by all of the opinions that were coming at me, and they were coming in like cyclones. I mean, it was hitting me pretty hard, and I eventually got to that point where I was thinking, am I gonna be okay? And there was just this small voice inside of me that was like, you're gonna be okay, because you know who you are. So I spent a lot of time just thinking to myself, you've got this, you're going, there's nothing else you need to worry about. Because I was just committed to whatever I had visualized for that future. That being said, good news, I applied, I got in, I even got a little bit of scholarship, and I was on my way. But have you guys heard of the butterfly effect? Yes. Yeah. Well, we've got a really good one coming up for you. We're gonna pause the story there and go into another story, but it was gearing up to graduation, high school graduation. I was class president, and I decided that right before my speech, I was going to I didn't give myself, I got a haircut. Have you guys ever gotten a bad haircut? It's mortifying. It's very mortifying when you actually then have to go on stage, speak, and your entire family's coming to watch you. And when my family comes out, it's a big ordeal. Like, all my aunts and relatives lived nearby. They all showed up. They were so excited that the twins were finally graduating. And yeah, my mom was like, why would you do that? When I got home with that haircut, she looked at me and just kind of thought, what were you thinking? I was scared to go home. Thankfully, I had a really great group of individuals who showed up in my life to kind of help me through that moment. Because at first I was like, can we glue it back on? Should I get a wig? Thankfully, one of my friend's moms tried a wig on me, and I said, that is not a look for me, but I appreciate you. But despite that embarrassing moment of my haircut, a new chapter was about to begin, and it was me going to college. But because of that bad haircut, I made this really funny commitment to myself that I was never gonna let anyone touch my hair, and I was never gonna be a victim of a bad haircut again. So I committed to cutting my hair from that day on, and also started new school with a bunch of new people. So it didn't matter that I had been the girl with long hair before and then it was completely cut off. At that moment, I kind of just realized it's not about how I come across to people. It's really about how I feel, and then how I make other people feel when they're actually engaging with me. And so it just kind of slowly started to build my confidence when I realized that I kind of get to have authority over that interaction and that environment. And so here I am at the University of Missouri thinking to myself, you know what else I really like? Duct tape. Yeah, that was the thing. We had a whole phase back in America that was dedicated to colorful, bright duct tape. But I did decide to make my backpack out of duct tape. Okay? So I became very quickly known as the girl with the pink and green duct tape backpack on campus. I had lightning bolts on one side and a checkerboard on the other side. And what was fun about that is it just allowed me to express myself. Something that if I had done that around my family, they would have really probably ridiculed and shamed me and told me not to come and hang out with them. But I was in college, so it didn't matter because I had new faces, new people, new everything to just explore, and that really made a difference. Because from there, I kind of just stopped comparing myself because I was in an environment where naturally that's what you do, especially when you have two older sisters and a twin brother, and everyone's just trying to make sense of the world around them. And the minute that I turned off that noise, I just started letting go of those metrics that I was kind of being held accountable to. And then I kind of started asking myself, well, it's about time. Like, who is Joy? What makes her tick? What lights her up? You know, how do I get empowered? What are the things that make me feel like I'm alive? Those were all little things that started coming up, and I would say, and definitely attribute that to my commitment in my faith and my belief in Jesus. And that really then started opening up a few doors because I started to get a lot more confident in just who I was besides, you know, the whole hair thing. There was this one random music venue, and I thought, this is perfect. I didn't even know about it when I got there. It was just so, you know, serendipitous. It was totally God, divine appointment, got me to where I needed to be. And so I decided, you know what? I want to work there. Don't know anyone there, don't know how. But surely there's bands coming and people need to know that the bands are coming, so I will start a street team. And those were really big back then. And so I will just promote it, make flyers, come up with creative things to just get people excited to come to something. And that's what I did. I walked over to that venue and I was like, can I speak to the manager? And they were just like, who are you? I said, oh, I'm here to help promote your shows. And they just looked at me like, okay, you have shows, right? You need these seats filled, this floor filled, you want people to come to them. I want to help. All you have to do is let me come to whatever show I want for free. And it worked so well that I was at a show pretty regularly. I'm not going to tell you how many because it's embarrassing. But that being said, it really helped me kind of see what it's like at a young age to put myself around professionals in something that I had an interest in. And so while I was there, and also obviously taking classes and learning, people were kind of stressing to me, learn what your elevator pitch is. Really understand who you are and what you're seeking. Maybe you don't have all of your plans figured out, but you definitely know where you want to end up to some degree. And so they kept reiterating this idea of visualization and really thinking about what you want, but being able to speak it up, because no one knows what you need until you tell them. You know, we're not all mind readers. There's some amazing people who are very gifted, they're prophetic, or they can just look at you because they have such a great relationship with you and they know exactly what you need. But that's not everywhere in the world. And so, that being said, I learned quickly how to basically start communicating my goals and my desires, and then eventually one of the bands that I had met there connected me to the A&R, which is Artist and Repertoire of Geffen Records. So here I am thinking this is it. This is my moment. I secured a internship. Interesting moment because you remember that school that I was so convinced that I was gonna that was my 4-year plan, this is where we're going to be, everything's good, I put all my eggs into that one basket. Plot twist. Who would have thought it was coming? This internship, which was also a great opportunity, required me to move and transfer to a different school. The good news was that it was a school that was back in Texas, where my family was, so I thought, okay, plus, we're going a decent direction. Felt like it was affirmed and confirmed, let's just move forward. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, like, this is the journey. That, like, getting an internship at Geffen Records with the head of A&R, little did I know that there was some other things in store for me. I did not get to take that internship because the program that I had transferred to basically would not permit someone at my, like, scholastic level to do an internship and receive credit. And I couldn't actually take the internship because the company policy is that you have to receive credit. So it was a big loophole, sad moment, and I was pretty crushed. I kept thinking to myself, I changed everything to come here, and now I'm stuck in this school, and it's just not a fun experience at all. And you would think that I crawled into a hole and just buried myself in that hole and just thought, well, life is over, I'm not gonna make it, I don't know what to do. Well, the fun news is I'm not that person. And I just kind of thought, well, I had a really fun time working at that venue, and I'm stuck at this school, so I might as well go to another venue and do the same thing, because at least I have shows, and I'm cutting my own hair, so that kind of works. Meanwhile, the word on the street of me doing hair had become a thing. And so college kids, as we all know, sometimes it's really expensive to go to the salon. So why not go to the girl who actually has decent hair that's cutting her hair in the dorm bathroom and have her cut your hair? At this point, I was completely winging it. I didn't know what was gonna happen because I kept thinking to myself, if I'm not gonna have the scholarship that I gave up when I left Mizzou, and now I'm at this school that I'm not really thrilled about, and it's just making my time at school difficult, and I'm not happy. But I loved music. And so I was enjoying the shows and enjoying the venue, and I loved cutting hair. And I had no idea that was even an interest or a skill set. Like, that would have never been on my radar if I just hadn't gotten that bad haircut. So to the young girl that I really freaked out on and started crying in her chair, thank you. The butterfly effect always has a purpose and intention that usually leads to something that ends up being your greatest opportunity. And so while I was at this school, I was cutting a young man's hair. His name is Troy, and he says to me, you know, Joy, I know you're not really happy here, but you're really good at this hair thing. Have you ever thought about, you know, going to hair school? And I scoffed and I was like, Troy, that's cute. Bless your heart. You don't know my family, and hair school is not for girls like me. And he was like, what is that supposed to mean? My mom's a hairdresser. And I'm like, oh. Yeah. Realized at that moment that I had a bias that really shouldn't have existed, because I quickly then enrolled in hair school. I ended up going to Paul Mitchell and had an amazing experience, and let me tell you, that is where things truly took shape in terms of my identity and my character. Because if it weren't for all those little instances leading up to pushing me out of my comfort zone, discovering things that I didn't even know I liked, and just rolling with the waves that came at me and just trying to ride them from time to time, I would not have known that there's a lot of people out there that struggle with the way that they look, because there's a lot of really bad hairdressers. I hate to admit it, but we've all seen them. Whether you want to join me in that statement or not, they've gotten a lot better, I will say that. Cosmetology at the time when I was attending school was not necessarily a prestigious thing to accomplish. But I just knew that I was fascinated by fashion and style and all these other things, and so I finally decided to go there. And while I was there, I met so many people, learned so many different stories, because you're just in their face. You can't avoid it. So they start opening up. You really do become a psychologist to them, even when you're in hair school. And that was a fun thing that then led me to discovering my purpose and passion, the why behind the what. That is so important, because if you're not really sure why you're here or what purpose you serve, and then also you don't know your passion as to what moves you, what drives you, what fuels you, I would suggest do everything in your power now at this age to figure out what that is. And do not let the fear of making a mistake or being out of your comfort zone or just feeling inadequate stop you from exploring, because this is the time. This is the perfect time. When I was in hair school, from the teachers to me and to our clients, was to help them find the best version of themselves. Whether you're looking at their cheekbones and understanding the anatomy of their face, then I took it a step further because I'm so introspective, and I was like, wow, how am I going to find the best version of myself? So I did. While I was in school, everyone that I was around, thankfully, was so intentional that I started realizing that these people were for me. All these opportunities are happening for me, not to me or at me. They're for me. And so in order to take advantage of that, I started investing in all the self-help things. I was like, let's figure out what I can do, how I can learn. I didn't necessarily have that support back home. It wasn't that my parents weren't able to, or they weren't positive. They just, they were busy. They were doing their other things. It's not kind of the style of, upbringing that we had. But they always wanted us to aim big and shoot for the stars. For them, they definitely wanted more of the doctor, lawyer route. And when I kind of went music journalist / hairdresser / I don't really know, music venue person, it was a rough one for them to swallow. They did not enjoy that one. But then they saw that I was investing in different things. I ended up getting a book called Smart Women Finish Rich. Funny title, but I was like, that was my goal, guys. I knew I wanted to get places, and I'm sure many of you do as well. So from that, what I took away from it, and I read this so many years and years ago, there's an exercise that they do in that book that helps you to establish what your purpose is. And it's a question that's as simple as, what is important to you? So once you do that, I suggest that you guys, write that down and take it home at some point, spend a weekend just asking yourself, what is important to you? Once you get that answer, I want you to go 7 layers deep and then ask, what about that is important to you? And do that 7 times. You will be surprised at what happens. You can read the book and go through the whole exercise yourself, or you can just do this and take the Cliff Note version. Either way, it's important to just establish it. Once you've written that, something that I also suggest is going back through and rereading it, but then paraphrasing your answers and making them really short and concise. When you can do that, you kind of start to realize where your key areas for the things that really matter to you are, and then what you can then start prioritizing your yeses to the areas that actually mean more to you. And then start saying no to the things that are really distracting and taking away from all of your potential. When you define the why behind your what, you can really start to commit to that and reinforce your confidence and know that you always have a North Star, which then allows you to figure out how to invest in time to develop your skills and the application of those skills. So skill set and application, basically, whether you want to be someone who wears all the hats, which is never a bad thing, or someone who's very specialized. I chose the wear all the hats thing. Has anyone ever felt like that before? You just wear all the hats. Yeah. That means you've got high drive and the ability to really succeed. That is what that means. It's a blessing. Some people may think that that is like a huge, daunting, skill set. It's not. It is what's going to take you into the rooms that you never imagined for yourself. And I know that because I'm living proof. It also helps you build confidence, because one thing that I think people forget is they think confidence is something you can just walk over and grab, or you can build it by certain, things that people say, or accolades or accomplishments, or how many zeros are in your bank account. Confidence is actually built by the more you do and accomplish and try, whether you fail or succeed or you literally give up in the middle of it. It's the simple fact that there was some initiation towards something, and hopefully you took something away that you learned. That builds you along the way. When I was in cosmetology school, I was the weird oddball that said, give me the most difficult person. Like, I went to the receptionist and I said, when a walk-in comes in and they just look, and everyone in the cosmetology school is like, oh gosh, you see that person? No, I hope they're not on my books. I don't want that person. I'm like, give me that person. That's how I was, and that's kind of how I am about life, is that the more challenging, the more unique they are, the more I want to be around them, because it helps me see from different vantage points and allows me to learn. And then again, it builds my confidence, because I'm not scared for the things that I'm unsure of. I was about 25 years old and decided that I had lived a very aggressive, super fast-filled life. Because here I was thinking like, oh wow, like, my success doesn't look like everyone else's, but I'm still trying to navigate a few things. Even though I took this road and this gig with this venue, makeup and hair was super fun, but it still wasn't fulfilling. Like, I didn't really know what was missing, but I knew something was. And I quickly realized that my faith was lacking. So I took some time and started working with a church. I interned and had a little, sabbatical on that front, and it was very, very good for me, because then I also still continue to cultivate in terms of network and relationship. And relationship being, who you know versus what you know. But one of the biggest things was obviously cultivating that time with Jesus, with the Lord. Because that really is my pillar and my center. And something that's pretty important to remember is that through network and relationships, people really, they have this saying that you are the sum of the 5 people that you keep closest to you. And so for me, someone that I really need close was obviously my relationship with God, which was very distant while I was so busy. But then when I refocused and just took the time to cultivate that, all of my relationships changed. My relationship with my family, my relationship with my siblings, all got better. Relationships with friends got better. I realized that I was now having friends and, experiences that were far deeper and far greater. And it definitely was because I was really cultivating that time and kind of pushing myself to be resilient through what I would say, could have been looked at as failures. People saying to me, oh wow, you're 25 and you got burnt out and you had to quit. Yeah, I was 25, I got burnt out, and I had enough wherewithal to take the time to work on that stuff. And so when you're feeling the pressure and you're feeling like you're at that point of burnout, do a self-evaluation, take some personal inventory, and see who's in your life to make sure that you're actually with people where iron sharpens iron, because that's important. You never want to get to a point where you realize the people you're engaging with are just dulling you. Your network is really your net worth. Let me say that one more time. Your network is your net worth. I ended up getting a job working with a music festival. I worked my way up from managing box offices and just ticketing overall to operations management, and then eventually to production managing, and then full-blown being the director of a festival and having a pretty wild career when it came to some of that. I loved it. I got some of the most unique experiences. But that job came specifically through somebody that I knew. It wasn't like I was looking for it. 27, I was working on Tomorrowland, which is a really awesome music festival that's based in Belgium. We brought it to the States. We did a few years there. I will say that I was not a part of year 3. That if you looked at Europe, Tomorrow World in the States, it was pretty rough. Not my project. In fact, I had a really bizarre thing happen where while I had spent all this time, working through all of the ladders that I climbed, Tomorrowland was going to bring me on as a full-time, producer, whatever job title, I don't even remember at this point. There was a certain position and a certain, price point that came with in terms of salary. I thought I was set. I just had to move to New York. That offer never came, and I was like, how is this happening again? Where I'm just feeling like the short end of the stick, because even though I had this fun, awesome career, I'm getting super frustrated at the industry here. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's unique things that are going on. But I knew at that moment when that offer didn't come the way I was hoping it would, I had to walk away again. So I walked away. Because ladies, let me tell you, your gut will tell you when you're supposed to keep going or when you should just collect your things, move on. It's kind of like that whole thing with the verse of leaving your piece or taking it with you. I did not have the peace to leave it with that company, so I took it and I moved on. Did I have a backup plan? Did I know where I was going to go after that? No, sure didn't. But thankfully, remember how we were just talking about network, relationships, and just really understanding that people are always watching. So if you're not representing the best version of you, however often and consistently you can, it's good to consider it more. I don't want to tell you what to do, but I will encourage you to just make sure that who you are is someone that you're really happy with, because people do take note. And then 2 weeks later, I received a phone call from the vice president of Rock in Rio. And Rock in Rio is one of the longest running music festivals in the history of music festivals. It is, in fact, one of my favorite projects that I've ever been blessed to work with. And it was massive. I was 28 years old and in charge of close to $20 million of a budget. Hard to fathom, okay? There's a lot of details that go on for $20 million for a 2-weekend music festival. And it was wild, and it led me to all the other things I wanted to accomplish. I moved to Vegas, took this job, had the most unique time as a person who, isn't much of a partier. I'm not that person, I just like to dance. I don't do drugs, I don't even drink alcohol. It was just one of those things where I was in quote unquote Sin City and I was like, let's shake things up. Because I had so much confidence in who I am that I could walk into those places, I could walk into the club, get the table, even though I don't drink, and just have fun. And I became this really fun person just by taking that job and saying yes to something, but more so just by saying no to what was offered to me because I didn't want the breadcrumbs. I knew myself better, that there's more to come when you actually start listening to the inner voice in you because you're so sure of who you are and that things do work out for you. And from there, it kind of just built up all of these different things. And that gets me to 2020 when the pandemic hit. Even after 2 years of not being able to truly work, thinking that I was gonna have to go back to school and figure everything out again, I was able to say, okay, I've seen the lows, I've seen myself with nothing, I've seen myself with a lot, we've gotta figure this out. What do I do in this time? And for me and my faith, the Lord told me to just rest, quit striving, and just let it be in His hands. So I just said, okay, what am I supposed to do? Well, all the things that I just identified to you. Work on my identity, build my character, really understand my purpose and my passion, get close with God, work on those relationships with people and the various individuals that had been so gracious to me in my life that I sometimes got too busy for. Build that network and learn skills. We're a lot like homes, and we can either appreciate and value and then take the time to do those upgrades to clean out the pipes, rewire the thinking, add on, maybe get a better haircut, all the things, or we can depreciate and value. And we can just let the weeds pop up and start really distracting and taking away from who we really are. So I would hope that you choose the first option and start investing in that, which I know you already are because you're here tonight. But imagine going from that person who had no idea what was going on, and then fast forward to right now where I'm overseeing the development of 20 new projects for the Daily Wire. And if you want to think that, oh my gosh, but you had to go to film school, you had to do all these things, you had to know this person, you had to know that person, I didn't know any of those people. I did not go to film school. I honestly was called to work on my first documentary just a year ago, almost today. So anything is possible. It's just whether or not you're willing to commit to yourself, believe in the things that you have really developed and cultivated in you, and then just be willing to, trust that the outcome is truly in your hands. There's this really wonderful saying, it's actually probably one of my favorite quotes, is that what you behold is what you become. And so it's really it goes back to the very main point that I had about visualization. So if you aren't enjoying where you're at, start visualizing where you want to go, because that simple practice of visualizing where you want to go is going to then help you get there. And it really will start allowing you to take steps that will align you to the reality that you're truly seeking. I hope that my talk with you today just kind of inspired you guys to pursue a little bit more of the things that make you light up, because you never know, you could have just as wild of a time as I have. Just want to thank you guys.